It began with a picture. The image was quite extraordinary. It showed a vast, dry landscape, endless sand and sparse, tough shrubs. But scattered across this barren expanse were countless small, furry shapes. They were rabbits. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, hopping and digging in the arid soil. The image spread like wildfire across the internet. Headlines and shares multiplied. People claimed China had released 1 million rabbits into the desert. The idea was so strange it captured the world's imagination. It defied what we thought we knew about rabbits. Rabbits belong in green fields, lush meadows. They are symbols of spring and new life. Deserts are harsh and unforgiving. They represent the opposite of abundance. The contrast was striking. The story became part wonder, part alarm. Some were horrified, imagining ecological disaster. Others were simply curious. Could this be real? The 1 million rabbits tale became a modern myth. This is the story of what truly happened. An exploration of myth and the surprising reality beneath the sand. The power of that image was its simplicity. Soft, vulnerable animals in one of the planet's toughest places. The tale that followed seemed simple at first, a grand, perhaps reckless, plan to change nature. As it traveled, the story grew. Numbers swelled. Reasons grew more dramatic. Facts and fiction blurred. The truth was far more complex, far more interesting. Our story actually starts with a single, pressing problem. Deserts are growing worldwide. Fertile land is turning to sand. Desertification threatens farms, villages, livelihoods of millions. In a region on the desert's edge, the problem was critical. Wind buried homes and fields in sand. The land was drying out. Local communities struggled to survive. In that desperate situation, planners and scientists proposed a radical idea. The plan was born from a desire to find a quick and natural solution. The authorities were fighting a losing battle against the encroaching sand. Planting trees was slow and expensive. Building physical barriers was often temporary. They needed something that could work with nature, not against it. The idea they settled on was ecological engineering. They wanted to introduce a species that could alter the environment in a positive way. After much debate, they chose the rabbit. It was a controversial choice from the very beginning. Rabbits are known for their ability to multiply rapidly and for their voracious appetites, traits that have caused problems elsewhere in the world. But the team had a specific theory. They believed the rabbits could act as biological plows and ecosystem catalysts. Their logic was this: the rabbits would dig burrows. These burrows would help break up the hard, compacted surface of the desert soil. When the rare rains came, water would collect in these depressions instead of running off. This would allow moisture to penetrate deeper into the ground, creating small pockets where seeds could germinate. The rabbits, they hoped, would not just dig, but would also help to restructure the very foundation of the landscape. It was a grand hypothesis, built on a series of hopeful assumptions. Another part of the plan involved the rabbits' diet. The area was being overrun by tough, unpalatable weeds that choked out native grasses. The planners hoped the rabbits would prefer to eat these invasive weeds. By clearing them away, the rabbits would create space for the original grasses to return. These native plants had deeper root systems, which are much better at holding the soil together and preventing it from blowing away in the wind. The rabbits were intended to be selective gardeners, carefully weeding the desert. It was a delicate balance to ask of an animal known for eating almost anything in its path. Finally, there was a stranger, more ambitious part of the vision. The planners hoped that a large rabbit population would attract predators. An increase in rabbits would provide a reliable food source for birds of prey, such as eagles, buzzards, and smaller carnivores like foxes. A thriving predator population, they reasoned, would create a more complex and stable food web. These predators would also help to keep the rabbit numbers in check. In this vision, the rabbits were not the final solution, but the first step in a chain reaction. intended to kickstart a whole new, self-sustaining ecosystem on the edge of the sand. The release did not happen all at once. The million rabbits figure was a dramatic exaggeration that caught on in news headlines. In reality, the project began with the introduction of several thousand rabbits into designated zones along the desert's edge. But even this smaller number was a significant ecological intervention. For the rabbits, it was a shocking change of scenery. They were moved from breeding centers into a world of vast open spaces, harsh sun, scarce food. Their survival instincts kicked in immediately. Their first priority was shelter. They began to dig. The desert floor had been a flat, hard-packed surface, was soon dotted with the entrances to burrows. The rabbits dug into the sides of small dunes, under the roots of hardy desert shrubs. These burrows became their refuge from the scorching daytime heat, the cold desert nights. They also provided protection from predators. Life was difficult. In the first few months, many of the rabbits did not survive. The desert is an unforgiving master. Yet rabbits are nothing if not resilient, and they are famously prolific breeders. The ones that adapted to the conditions began to reproduce. Within 6 months, the population began to rise. A new generation of rabbits, born and raised in this semi-arid world, proved to be much tougher than their predecessors. They learned where to find the most succulent roots, which plants held water after a rare rainfall. The population experienced booms and busts. After a season of good rain, when plants flourished, the rabbit numbers would explode. During long droughts, their numbers would crash as food became scarce. This fluctuating cycle became a new rhythm of the desert, a pulse of life driven by water and vegetation. The rabbits' behavior changed the physical landscape in subtle ways. Their constant digging and foraging loosened the top layer of soil. When the wind blew, it picked up this loosened sand and dust more easily. In some areas, this worsened erosion. But in others, something interesting happened. The burrows acted as miniature traps for organic matter. Windblown seeds, leaves, other debris would collect in the depressions around the burrow entrances. This created tiny, concentrated patches of nutrients in the otherwise poor soil. These patches became cradles for new life, small oases of potential in a vast and barren land. The introduction of so many herbivores had an immediate and visible effect on the plant life. As the planners had hoped, the rabbits did eat some of the invasive weeds. They seemed to enjoy the young, tender shoots of these hardy plants. In areas with high rabbit densities, patches of ground were cleared, opening up the landscape. This gave other species a chance. After the first significant rains, a faint green fuzz appeared in places where only bare ground had been before. It was a tentative sign that part of the theory was working. However, the rabbits were not the selective gardeners the planners had envisioned. They ate what was available. In times of scarcity, they would eat almost anything, including the young shoots of the very native grasses the project was trying to encourage. They gnawed the bark from the base of desert shrubs, sometimes killing the older, established plants that provided shade and stability. The result was not a uniform greening, but a complex mosaic. Some areas saw improvement, with native plants taking hold. Other areas were stripped bare, becoming even more vulnerable to wind erosion than before. The outcome was unpredictable and varied dramatically from one place to another. The animal community also began to change. The sudden abundance of prey was not ignored. Birds of prey, which had once been rare visitors, became a common sight. Kestrels, buzzards circling high above, scanning for movement. On the ground, desert foxes. Other small predators found a reliable food source. Their populations began to increase in response to the rabbit boom. This fulfilled one of the project's goals, to create a more complex food web. The predator's presence also put natural pressure on the rabbits, helping to control their numbers in a way that human intervention never could. But there were also unforeseen consequences. The increase in rabbits led to an increase in the parasites and diseases associated with them. Ticks, fleas, More worryingly, diseases like myxomatosis, which can be devastating to rabbit populations, appeared. These diseases would sweep through the colonies, causing dramatic crashes in their numbers. This boom and bust cycle of the rabbit population had a knock-on effect on their predators. When the rabbits died off, the predators would face starvation, and their own numbers would decline. The ecosystem was not finding a new stability. Instead, it was being thrown into a series of wild, unpredictable oscillations. The local human population watched the arrival of the rabbits with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. For farmers on the fragile border between arable land and the desert, the rabbits were a potential threat. Their fears were soon realized. The rabbits did not stay within the designated zones. Driven by hunger and a natural instinct to explore, they began to venture into cultivated fields. They moved at night, a silent, nibbling horde, devastating young vegetables and wheat shoots in a single evening. The stories from farmers were heartbreaking. Small families on tiny plots reported significant losses. One farmer, an old man named Wei, spoke of his despair.
"We fight the sand our whole lives. We water every plant by hand. Then these rabbits come. In one night they eat the work of a month. It is like the desert has grown legs and a mouth."
This created tension between local communities and the authorities who approved the project. Farmers felt ignored, their knowledge and livelihoods discounted for a risky scientific gamble. However, where some saw a pest, others saw an opportunity. An explosion in rabbit numbers created a new informal economy. Hunting became food and income. Markets for rabbit meat grew in nearby towns. Enterprising people organized hunts and sold meat to restaurants. Some families got an economic boost. A paradox: the same animal destroyed crops and fed them. Hunting helped reduce rabbit numbers near farms. A deep division formed in the community. Farmers demanded eradication, culling programs, and stronger fences to protect their land.